There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow human. True nobility is being superior to your former self.
It is unwise to be too sure of one's own wisdom. It is healthy to be reminded that the strongest might weaken and the wisest might err.
He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God?
Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tenuous to use it like a giant.
If only I had a little humility, I'd be perfect.
Thank you is the best prayer that anyone could say. I say that a lot. Thank you expresses extreme gratitude, humility, understanding.
Early in my career, I had to choose between an honest arrogance and a hypocritical humility. I deliberately chose an honest arrogance, and I've never been sorry.
Don't accept your dog's admiration as conclusive evidence that you are wonderful.
Everyone should have 2 pockets, each carrying a piece of paper. On one paper should be written, "I am but dust and ashes." And on the other, "The whole world was created for me." From time to time, we must reach into one pocket or the other, the secret of living well coming from knowing when to reach into each.
We learned about gratitude and humility, that so many people had a hand in our success, from the teachers who inspired us to the janitors who kept our school clean. And we were taught to value everyone's contribution and treat everyone with respect.
If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to one another.
We could wrestle with tomorrow till tomorrow's in the past. 'Cause I have torn apart what's beautiful to prove that nothing lasts. I have stayed locked behind this door to show there's no way out. I got lost within the space between the question and the doubt. On an ordinary day, in an ordinary way, I have combed the cracks of virtue for a place to lay the blame. And I have hated, I have lied, been guilty and denied. I've dismissed the ones who question me, declaring I am right. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? I have built a wall between what I believe and what is true. I have sacrificed the love I had for power over you. I have deflected those who disagree and walked over the weak. I have played placed a gun within the mouth of those who dared to speak on an ordinary day, in an ordinary way. I have crushed the minds of children with extraordinary shame, and I have carried on this war, though no one wins an endless fight. I have claimed that God is guiding me, and killed to prove I'm right. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? Oh. Is this soul worth saving at all? 'Cause if I lose my wings, then surely I must fall, and God'll faint, fall insane. We could wrestle with tomorrow till tomorrow's in the past. We could tear apart what's beautiful to prove that nothing lasts. We could stay locked behind these doors to show there's no way out. We got lost within the space between the question and the doubt. What if we're wrong?
I'm going to tell you all a story. Please don't judge me too harshly. Keep in mind, I was much younger, and I fully admit this is not my proudest moment. I was driving, and I had just left my house. As I navigated my way out of the neighborhood, I pulled up to a stop sign where my small residential street crossed a higher traffic street, and I had to wait for traffic to clear in both directions before I could go. While I was waiting, a car pulled up behind me. After a few seconds, the car honked. There was still traffic coming from both directions, so there was no way I could go. And yet, the car behind me honked again. Furious, I rolled down my window, leaned out, turned around, and with both hands fully extended, proceeded to gesture with both hands. When I turned back around, a clearing in the traffic had come, and I indignantly floored the gas pedal and sped away. But wait, there's more. As I picked up speed, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye in the rear view. I scanned my mirror for what might have caused the flash of movement that I thought I saw, but not seeing anything obvious, I returned my eyes to the road in front of me. Then it happened again. A flash of movement in the rearview mirror. This time, I looked back quickly enough to see a shoe bouncing down the road behind me. Not just a shoe, my shoe. One of a pair that I had left on the roof of my car to free my hands so I could unlock the door. The two flashes of movement in the rear view were the two shoes I had left on top of my car when I left my house. They were the shoes that were still on the roof of my car as I pulled up to a stop sign and waited to cross traffic at a busy street. They are the shoes that the driver behind me noticed and wanted to let me know about by honking his horn to get my attention. What a thoughtful, helpful gesture. And I reciprocated with a gesture of my own. 2 gestures, actually. Like I said, this was not my proudest moment. In fact, this was an embarrassing and humbling moment. I was so sure that my interpretation of that moment was true, that the person behind me was honking because they were impatient. I didn't even question this thought. It just occurred to me, and I believed it. And really, it doesn't make much sense. Why would they honk for me to go when there was clearly traffic preventing me from doing so? In hindsight, it's pretty clear that I was projecting my own impatience onto the honking motorist behind me. And my reaction to this assumption was not good, even if it was not especially harmful. But this, I think, illustrates the danger in reacting to beliefs we carry without examining them and their source. When we act without knowing why, it's far more likely that we will do something we're not proud of. And it's far more likely that we will do something that is harmful to ourselves or to others. This is one reason why it's good to be humble. Now, with the Thanksgiving holiday approaching, I am very much looking forward to gathering with friends and family around a table filled with delicious food. There will be turkey, of course, and ham. Definitely mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, stuffing, cranberry sauce, steamed veggies, probably a couple of different kinds of salad. So many wonderful dishes. And I will probably eat too much. Anyone else? Yeah. And we all know that being full isn't a good feeling. It's pretty uncomfortable. And yet every year, as I'm holding my empty plate, about to fill it with the delicious goodness in various casserole dishes and serving platters, I tell myself, okay, just go easy. Don't eat too much. Somehow, though, that pile of mashed potatoes ends up bigger than I intended, and there is one more slice of turkey on my plate than I really needed. And when it comes time for dessert, I don't even pretend. I know I'm getting 3 slices of pie. Got pumpkin, pecan, and chocolate. Because really, how do you choose? Now, it's always delicious, and yet stuffed to the brim, I always think, next year I'm going to show a little more restraint. And just like when we overeat, being full of ourselves isn't good either. Filling our egos with certainty and righteousness, having too much knowing and not enough wondering, leaves us without room for curiosity, for uncertainty, and for the unknown. It leaves us without anywhere to put the delicious, mysterious morsels that life offers us. We would do well to save a little room for humble pie. 3 slices, to be exact. Now, the summer before last, I was selected to represent my seminary on the New Faces of Ministry tour. My purpose on this tour was to drive across the Southwest and Midwestern United States on a 3-week road trip, meeting with congregations, schools, and service organizations about the connection between service work and ministry. On a stop at a college campus in Oklahoma, I found myself talking to members of a Christian student organization. They had set up a table in the student commons and were attempting to recruit new members, so I approached them and began a discussion. As they excitedly shared the many ways in which they were spreading the truth of the gospel, a thought occurred to me. Where did their belief in Jesus begin? How far back could they trace their beliefs? Where did they originate from? So I asked, Many of the students were confused by the question. Their understanding of Jesus and the Bible simply was true. It didn't matter how they knew it to be so. The question seemed irrelevant to them. It just didn't make sense. All that really mattered was their being right. So in the song that we just heard by Damian Rice, we're asked to consider just how dangerous self-righteousness can be when carried out to its extreme. And I have hated, I have lied, been guilty and denied. I've dismissed the ones who question me, declaring I am right. Now, our beliefs matter. Our theologies matter. It's not enough to know what we believe, to just be able to articulate our ideas about what the divine is, or even if the divine is. We must also look at why we hold that belief, exploring its origin and formation within ourselves, examining how it was planted and how it has been cultivated. And we must be accountable for our theologies. Beyond understanding what and why we believe, we are responsible for knowing what our beliefs are capable of doing in the world. We are capable of what they are capable of doing, what we are capable of doing because of the beliefs we hold. We must know who they are affecting and how, and we must be willing to be held accountable for the results of our active theologies, for they are not just beliefs, they are our identities, they are ourselves. We must own our actions, we must own our theologies, and we must own our identities. And we must hold them lightly. Humility creates space inside of us to allow for what we don't know, for that uncertainty. And that prevents the grip of ego and self-righteousness from gaining unwanted influence over us. One definition of humility really resonates with me. It defines humility as being open to the possibility that things are other than the way I think them to be. And I have carried on this war, though no one wins an endless fight. I have claimed that God is guiding me and killed to prove I'm right. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if the only justification I have for doing what I do is because God says so, and then it turns out that God doesn't exist? This God cannot be an assumption. God can motivate me to act, but only with an awareness that this belief is influencing my actions. And very importantly, I cannot assume that the belief in God that I might hold, or disbelief in God for that matter, is a belief that others should hold, or that others are expected to act the same way that I do. Now, this applies to atheists too. They're not exempt from self-righteousness and ego. Remember, while there is no proof of God, God hasn't been disproven either. In other words, humility means to acknowledge that your life experiences are true for you and a basis for your beliefs, but they are not universal. To be open to learning about the experiences of others, to hear their truths and their stories. This is humility. Humility also takes a certain amount of awareness and self-reflection. It requires an understanding of who we are, especially in relation to each other. It requires that we recognize the power dynamics that exist between people and upheld by systems. Humility requires that I recognize when certain voices don't get the same opportunity to speak as others. It requires that I recognize that just because someone's perspective isn't one that I'm used to, it doesn't mean that it isn't valid and true. In a TED Talk called Let's Revive the Golden Rule, Karen Armstrong says, people have emphasized the importance of compassion not just because it sounds good, but because it works. People have found that when they have implemented the golden rule to do it all day and every day, you dethrone yourself from the center of your world, put another there, and you transcend yourself. And it brings you into the presence of what's been called God, Nirvana, Brahman, Tao, something that goes beyond what we know in our ego-bound existence. Now, I really like her sentiment of transcending our egos to better connect with each other, our world, and perhaps even the divine. However, I'm not sure the golden rule is the most effective way to do this. I believe the platinum rule more appropriately captures what we're trying to achieve in our humility. Now, the golden rule, of course, is to treat others the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule, however, calls us to treat others as they want to be treated. See the difference? Rather than assume we know what's best for others, the platinum rule asks that we humble ourselves enough to recognize the limitations of our own worldview. It asks that we don't assume our experiences translate to the lives of others. We don't assume that what we think is what they should know. I find that most people don't appreciate it when others force their perspectives on us. So why would we do that to others? This is another reason to be humble, to ensure we don't impose our beliefs on others. What if we approached each other with curiosity rather than judgment? It's hard. When we think we know something, it is hard to hear that someone else's truth, knowledge, or experience contradicts our own. It's at these times when I hear Damian Rice's words in my head. What if I'm wrong? In a community setting like here at this church, we will all eventually be wrong. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Reverend Nadia Boltz-Weber, the pastor of House for All Sinners and Saints up in Denver, Colorado, addresses this in her new member classes. In her book, Pastrix, she says of new members, this community will disappoint them. It's a matter of when, not if. We will let them down, or I'll say something stupid and hurt their feelings, and I invite them then on this side of their inevitable disappointment to decide if they'll stick around after it happens. Reverend Nadia asks that when they are wronged, they stick it out. And don't we take a similar approach, or shouldn't we? Don't we enter into relationships here knowing that we are all imperfect beings? That the covenants we make will be broken. And that our Unitarian Universalist tradition calls us to re-covenant. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again, come. Come back into covenant and come back into the beloved community. So, why is humility a good thing? Well, as we've already examined, a lack of humility can be embarrassing, and often it can also be harmful. By fostering humility within ourselves, we can avoid some pitfalls that ego and self-righteousness bring about, and the barriers that they create to cooperation. There are also many more direct and personal benefits to being humble. A quick Google search of "why be humble" turns up a number of articles providing reasons why we should adopt an attitude of humility. Some of these articles focus on how humility improves our psychological and emotional well-being. Other articles suggest that being humble has financial benefits and benefits in the business world. And still other articles argue that the merits of moral and spiritual merits of humility. And of course, being humble has social benefits as well, because really, who wants to spend time with a narcissist? So indeed, there are many reasons to be humble. And perhaps the most significant reason is that we belong to one another. I've found that acting in the interest of others is quite often in my own best interest as well, especially when our actions aim to improve the conditions in which we find ourselves, because we all benefit from a better world. Wisdom from the Talmud says, "Do justly, now. Love mercy, now. Walk humbly, now." You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. And to this, I add that no one has to do it alone, because really, no one can. This is why we belong to one another. And so, may we attempt to set our egos aside, to cultivate peace by showing empathy to our neighbors, to have a genuine curiosity in others and in the world. May we be of service to others, may we work for justice, and may we walk humbly wherever we may go.